Hey Jayanth, good to see you back.
Hi,
Hope you had a lovely
Leslie.
weekend.
Oh, yeah, it was great. I was traveling. I was in Mumbai. I was meeting the entire senior management of one of the biggest media houses of the country. It was a very interesting conversation. Yeah.
We shall not name them.
No, we shall not name them.
She who cannot be named.
How about you? How was your weekend?
Good, good, good. It's cold out here. I mean, the temperature is dipping, and with the wind gusts, as I said, it goes to -1 and -2. And certain areas of Canada, of course, it's already snowing. So yeah, it's good fun. I heard Bangalore is also getting cold, and we have with us Mr. Rajesh Uppal, who is the member executive board HR and IT at Maruti Suzuki India. So let's extend him how Mr. Uppal, a very hearty welcome to this podcast.
Thank you so
Welcome,
much,
Mr. Uppal.
Leslie. So nice to see you again.
Likewise, likewise. And Delhi must be cold, right?
This is becoming cold. So morning, evenings are cold, but day is decent.
Ah,
Mhm.
good, good.
Mhm.
Listeners, for your benefit, I think Rajesh Uppal doesn't really require any introduction to those who are in the field of IT. But all the same, he's a technology professional, he's an IT evangelist, he's a futurist because he has seen the entire life cycle of technology out here, more than 3-4 decades in India. And of course, expertise is now in the auto industry. So we're going to ask him some very, very interesting questions, both about since he handles both the IT and the HR functions. So there's going to be some very interesting insights that we will be playing around with. And before that, of course, we'll be talking about some news developments during the week. One of them, of course, being that California has halted operations of self-driving cruise robo
Yeah.
taxis. Now, I think this was like I I hate
You
to
can't
say it, but
script it.
serendipity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
can't
can't
script
script
it.
it. You can't script it, and it's as I said, I hate to say it's serendipity that it happened to me when Rajesh is here on this podcast. So Rajesh, of course, we have been talking about self-driving cars for I think almost more than a decade now, and these are, I think, the ones with cruise and all are level 5 driving
Absolutely.
cars. And in India, we don't have anything like that. I think it's level 3 at the
Level
most,
2 to 3, yes.
Level.
level 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, so, what are your thoughts on this entire thing of self-driving cars?
Uh, I guess, in long run, this will be a reality. But India adoption will be a little slower than the rest of the world. The reason being, I think we are still, as a country, very under motorized country. And traffic discipline and the way of driving in the company, I think, need lots and lots of maturity as we go along. So, but my the thought is, India will be a country where you'll get lots and lots of innovative solution which world could not think about, because we have our own way of working, and we need our own solution for our working around and all. So my feeling is we will get many innovative ideas from India which could be taken globally. I think it's started happening in many industries per se, because with the shortage of resources, you come out with some newer and excellent way of working in the country. Or the UPI is one example per se, where in India, the way adoption of the payment has been, nowhere in the world has seen such a high and such a fast pace adoption of this kind of technology around. So I see in this space also lots and lots of local innovation will happen and all. And what will be the future, I still don't know. I think we need to co-create that with our customers as we go along. Is a journey, I guess, will be frankly going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting thing that you have said. I mean, that we'll find our own way to innovate around these technologies. In fact, actually, I remember about 2-3 years back, the Union Minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, had said that he won't allow self-driving cars on Indian roads. I mean, he's been quoted all over. But I think his reasons were more around the job losses, potential job losses, and trying to prepare. I thought it was a sensible way of going about it. But as you rightly said, I think driving on Indian roads, especially in a city like Bangalore, Jayanth, you must have your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, like I keep saying, in Bangalore we don't have roads, we only have gaps. Okay.
Yeah, and I think they
Yeah.
require those. Self-driving cars are very disciplined, kind of. If I were to use a human kind of analogy, and we have anything but discipline on Indian roads, so it's going to be pretty interesting. But of course, I mean, talking about self-driving cars, it sort of gels with the topic that we talk about during these podcasts, and that's about AI and generative AI. Uh, before that, Rajesh, you have seen the role of a CIO transition over the past 30 years. Your life would have been, I would say, both exciting and sort of, I think a lot of disruption has happened in the tech sector itself, which has kept you, probably given you a lot of sleepless nights also. I mean, and especially the last 8-10 months or 1 year with generative AI, the kind of stuff that is happening in that field. If you can just, give our listeners a brief overview of how you see, how you have, you have tracked these tech developments over the last 3 decades or so. If you can just give us a brief overview. I know it's asking for too much, but all the same.
I think, Leslie, the Gartner Hype Curve, I guess this is a very universal truth for any technology. Earlier, and today maybe generative idea is a stage where it's height on expectations and all kind of thing. But all technology with passing time find a plateau of maturity, which is the guy where you really starting adding value to your businesses as we go along. For each technology, each organization has to take their stand. You want to be an initial adopter and take value out of that initially, or you want to be a guy who just proven technology and you just want to use that to really get business to a next level. So it's something which you need to really keep understand. Maybe you have to evaluate for each technology in that curve. You see a light value in that, maybe start immediately. And somewhere you say, okay, let me wait and let me see the things around and all. I'll play around with this to work on. Is the whole interesting, adoption each company has to do really to manage that particular technology to talk about. So whether it was maybe mainframes earlier to the ERPs to the CRMs to anything around and all, I think it's something, the journey of each organization. You need to be very clear on your stand on work on honor. And of late, my feeling is the whole the framework of agile which has come in place now in organization, where you just say that, okay, I'll just do some very few pilot to prove certain points around and all, to understand that what impact does it create in your businesses, and then you scale it up further to really take to next level for doing that. I think the change which has come in now recently, which was nowhere there and all. Earlier, after 12 months or maybe 18 months of your ERP, you get to know are you successful or not, frankly. But I think that whole change which has happened in the industry on this subject, I think has created more excitement in the industry and more value realization in the minds in the organization. I think it's a big change I'm seeing right now to look at that. And also, I'm also very firm believer that these days these innovations are not very long lived for you to really get value and get maybe competitive advantage with respect to your competition. You need to really, it will get copied maybe in 3 months to 6 months or maximum 1 year to do that and all. So the creating a culture in the organization where you keep on innovating regularly to raise the bar, I think the change which has come along with this to work on. So it's the whole process of agile development, and followed by the creating culture to do that continuously. I think is the change which I am seeing today and all, and which is becoming very important for each organization to adopt that in their organization. I think that's the big change I see happening.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because you're right. I mean, AI, generative AI is at the top of the hype curve. A few years back, IoT was at the top of the hype curve. And, I remember Leslie and I used to have long discussions, and especially for IoT, sensor-based solutions, automotive industry was one of the, go-to industries with a lot of use cases and applications.
Absolutely.
But when we were doing our research and we were deep diving, one of the insights that we got is the automotive industry, the planning, product development, execution, sales cycle, and churn cycles are fairly longer as compared to any other industries, right? So, and some of these emerging technologies have to, or any new technology adoption in the automotive industry has to stand the test of time, right? And by that, what you just mentioned, that you see that some of these technologies being copied and replicated within 3 to 6 months, okay, is a norm. So that thereby you don't see a lot of competitive advantage. But help me understand, because on one side, we track some of these technologies which are literally having a 6-month generational cycle, right? 6 months to a year generational cycle, and automotive industry, need something proven over a period of times, for a period of years, for it to be even thought of adopting. So how does this balance out in terms of daily, weekly, and yearly growth for companies and the industry?
See, Jayanth, when I wanted to really point out my point of view in this was that since the life cycle is short, you need to be very aggressive in adoption in your company. I think that's the very important piece to do that. So you're from POC to really value realization in the whole company has to be very fast paced, very short, and very, very quick. I think that's the point I'm making, to really look at that and all. Maybe one side of auto industry is the product side and all, and there, your liabilities and your all those things are very high. You need to have lots and lots of testing before you roll out. Right. But I think adjoining space to that is huge. Whether your customer service, whether it is your IoT, you said about and all, maybe office efficiency going forward with the generative AI. I think is the area around where you can you be a very effective player. I think the shift I'm seeing is we focused a lot on efficiencies earlier. Now the whole focus toward using this AIs and all this technology around is, can you be more effective? So I think shift from efficiency to effectiveness. I think that's the change I'm seeing happening around to work on, and the speed of that has to be very fast. I'm saying it cannot be getting requirements and all, and that's where I think my experience has been. It's not about IT digital versus users. I think it's all about co-creating together to work on that and all. So the whole typical program run like is, this is my current business values, whether top line, bottom line, efficiencies, and or operations. Let's work together on any technology platforms to work on and co-create solutions on where we can measure the impact of that to work on. I think that's the change I'm seeing, that or that change we are driving the company for adopt those technologies faster and with very clear focus on return on investment on this technology very clearly, and not really anything else. So we create any AI project and all pilot you do, we fund that pilot. After that, it has to be a ROI case to really create business value for the company, whether it could be customer service, employee experience, top line, bottom line, anything on that and all. It has to be measurable impact. I think that's the way this whole change which we're trying to bring in the organization on digital.
And the value chain of the vendor ecosystem and all are also set up and streamlined in a way that this goes downstream.
So I think how we work on this is, there are two parts of so-called digital supply chain. Now, one is the demand side and one is the supply side. So supply side is something my digital organization, which started with maybe 5 people, maybe 5-6 years back. Today, we have almost 500 people working on only digital technologies to adoption that and all. So that's my so-called digital factory who can supply those technology to there. There's
Right.
my own regular employees. There are partner employees working on that on board. But I think there's a team which is really supplying the whole digital technologies on various areas around analytics, and these are one of them. Second side is the demand side. Now, how do you create that demand in the ecosystem to consume those or grade that and all, which can be fulfilled by this supply? So we need to work on both of them. So the right from educating your whole senior management on digital technologies for adoption, maybe doing lots and lots of design thinking of workshops, maybe exposing people to outside world to find out what is happening around, using open innovation with startup, in a very effective way to get those innovation coming from the startup community to our company, or also maybe using our own employees to think like startup and give suggestions and business cases to adopt on. So creating those opportunity in the company from supply demand side, so that we can, so one side you have demand, one side you have, so you manage the whole supply chain of digital ideas, from ideas to projects to value delivery. I think it's the whole structure you need to create to really manage that. That's how we have been trying to establish lots and lots of success stories on that, frankly.
No, I think it's a very important thing that you brought out, because the way businesses look at all these technologies is so different from the way individuals would look at these technologies, because there's a whole ecosystem around it. And I think that is what you have brought out, because just being a first movers thing doesn't really help.
Absolutely.
I mean, that no longer really holds any water as these new technologies are concerned.
And
Because
also,
I think,
one point to add, Leslie, on this is, sorry for disrupting. I think today you can't benchmark with your own peer companies around and all. My customer service can learn a lot from banks than they're learning from my auto dealers around to do that and all. So I think you need to look at each function as a function, and look at that, how you can transform that function. I think is a different mindset and change you need to bring in the organization, I guess.
The value chain is not linear. Leslie, we used to talk about this 5 years ago.
Yeah. But see, this is what I find very interesting, because when Sam Altman or any of the whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Google, whether it's Hugging Face, whether it's Meta, whenever they're talking about generative AI, the first question that arises in mind, okay, what are whether an auto company like a car maker like Maruti Suzuki is implementing using generative AI. No, that's probably missing the point here, because time and again, if you look at the entire process, I've been tracking what Rajesh has been doing for so many years. So it's like when you're looking at, as we said, IoT, now the foundation still remains data. The foundation still remains cloud. The kind of data that is being generated, we are still using that kind of data. At the end of the day, even if you get an LLM, it will still have to be trained and fine-tuned on this particular data to make sense. I don't think things have changed over here, and those will cause 10,000 other problems when you're actually implementing, which explains why you're looking at those kind of pilots. Else we'll have the same problem that we had with blockchain, a solution chasing our business problem. So I mean, we used to make jokes about it, and we are seeing actually how it panned out. Now, with we don't want generative AI going down the same road. But having said that, also, I mean, you look at the car industry, it has been one at the forefront of technologies, whether it is IoT, whether it is using 3D printing, whether it is using the metaverse, robotics. In fact, actually, that will be something that you could probably tell us a little more, Rajesh, about. You have been using AI and robotics so well. I mean, robotics, industrial automation, of course, RPA, etc. But if you could, give our listeners some sense of how advanced these technologies and how are they actually creating business value.
To see my success story on this, maybe today we have more than 60 bots running 24/7. Rather, I said digital workers working 24/7 and doing various processes in the company to work on. And this is growing every day, effectively. So that's one part of the story to look at. I think the whole story about how do you manage your customers and how do you really digital support your customers. So the front end is the business problem and solving that one. Today, out of 26 touch points with the customers, 23 are on digital, where we can track what is happening by each one of the customer. And earlier, I'll give you a simple example, okay, to illustrate the point. Now, we used to have a book manual supplied with all cars earlier and all, and which used to remain in the dashboards all the time. In fact, nobody opened to see that and all. Now we came out with a so-called digital solution on. You have a manual on digital, and anywhere and all, you just take a picture of that area around, and system will get you to that area, how to use that area can be used, and then it become very interactive kind of manual which we created around. But so it's good, it saves paper, it saves efficient working on that and all. But today, along with that, I can, as a customer, know which is the area customers are looking forward to. They learn more. Can I improve that further or not and all? So that's where the whole effectiveness part come in the digital, so that you have the data available to take right decision on that. So people are not finding it good. Maybe you need to use a user interface differently to really manage that and all. So the kind of learning you get from all of those points, I think, is very phenomenal thing. Change is not simple, book to the digital, but I think book to digital with much more effectivity to take decision, I think, is the change which we want to see that and all. And I guess generative AI also, we are trying to do lots and lots of use cases now, very clearly on meant that, okay, where the whole impact would be. And thanks to, you said, clouds and all those platforms available, which is, you're paying only when you use that and all. You're not really putting a huge investment in place in the beginning and trying to see that how do I create value and all. So you're spending as you go along to really see that what value you're creating and all. And that's the enabling environment which got created due to the digital and those business model coming into place. And you can optimize your efficiency later on once things are stable. You can see how to optimize cost and do that and all. But I think go to market, the pace, I think, is becoming very, very good because of those enabling environment available for taking decision, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's what you said is this whole emphasis on customer first, to understand what's happening in that area. I mean, because the amount of models that Maruti introduces, and on all the car makers for that matter of fact, makes things. Then, of course, you're talking about electric, you're talking about hybrids, you're talking about hydrogen, which is coming up. So it's quite a messy. I mean, it's such a complex arena with good fun. And then, of course, I do not know whether, because Jayanth is very interested in sports cars. So,
No,
so maybe he may
I'm
have
interested
a
in
point
all
or two
cars
about
that
that.
that have great drivability, all vehicles, bikes and cars. No,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's very interesting what you just mentioned, because on like what Mr. Uppal said, on the supply side, there's a lot of innovation that's happening, right? Right from the basic fuel types to the cars, the types of cars, the dashboards. We are seeing software-driven vehicles, cars themselves becoming fully software like mobile phones going forward. But on the demand side, the customer has a lot of options, but the upgrade cycle still more or less remains the same, or there hasn't been as much change in the upgrade cycles, right? And that for the automotive industry is something when they have to balance what Mr. Uppal said, the adoption of these new technologies from an end-to-end ecosystem point of view. And Mr. Uppal, now we are seeing cars becoming more and more software heavy. Okay, we have over-the-air upgrades and in cars that are coming up. And going forward, there, with software-driven vehicles becoming, the platforms becoming that much more ubiquitous, it's expected to become that much more seamless and powerful. The role of software, okay, in the cars. What you mentioned earlier is a very interesting point. You said that out of 26 touch points, 23 are digital, and you are getting signals, I mean, of customer preferences, okay, and you're using that to develop better applications and use cases. And how do you see coming down to specifically for this technology, AI, right? Leslie and I keep talking about AI in two halves. AI 1.0, which was the earlier AI, which was all about trend analysis, pattern recognition, forecasting, advanced analytics, and now generative AI, which is now generating stuff. I mean, apart from LLMs creating a lot of text, now we have designs also coming in. So both these AI 1.0 and AI 2.0, okay, can you give specifically how Maruti Suzuki as a company is using this technology, and especially the integration of both these technologies? Because we personally, both of us are strong believers that it's more than generative AI, it's the integration of both these technologies that actually brings in a lot of value.
I think two things to talk about. See, whether it is employee experience or a customer experience, I think this is one area where today almost more than 90% of people or customer first look at digital side to really before taking a decision on cars. Now, how can we create those experiences for the customer to really be very specific and really interact with him the way he'd want to look at that? Is the one area of generative AI use case which I think is very important, and we are working on that, and you will see that a lot of things coming on that, and maybe that can come into the normal conversation, or it could come in metaverse to look at that. But I think the whole lot of customer engagement and very conversational with him than really be a menu based kind of interaction. I think it's something, a big change I'm seeing will happen, and to do that and all. And for that, you need to create right kind of knowledge basis on back end, and that sort of training for those interaction engines to really work out, to really ensure that you work on that. So that's the one piece, which is the customer engagement using generative AI and making it more meaningful for him to work on. Similar one we are also working on with our employee experience. You need to interact with us in a various modes. You have apps, you have the ERPs to look at that. Can we make it conversational than really making it the very typical of doing that? Where again you saying you use efficiency of employee, really not spending time on the unproductive things around, and be very quick to do that. Is a second piece, which I think, again, your whole policies, procedures come as a backend, and not only for your employee experience, but also employee working day to day and all. You have a large knowledge base in your different functions, whether it's R&D, whether it is production, whether it is engineering and all. Can generative AI can really support them to be more effective in their area, with all the knowledge bases which is lying in millions of documents around, and make it very effective, and which is very authentic, our own documents inside the company. But can you be very specific and conversational with the new young engineer to be more effective? I think it's very important to deliver that. That's another use case of getting employee experience, not his working, but also the area which he is working on, the domain at which working on is the area to work on. And that's the space where I think we are trying to create a very clear framework in the company, where as an internal user you can use the internal consumption, and also here the security comes in a very important and all. Like maybe R&D data had to be with R&D people. So how can you deliver only to R&D people those generative AI, not to anybody else? But there are few things which should be available to everybody in the company, like HR policies to look at that. So creating a right framework of generative AI in the company, so that you have a right proper answers to the people they want to. And if they don't get it within the internal knowledge system, can it go out and go on the internet and find that right thing to you and do that, so that you become more effective in your working? I think the space which we are working on to really adopt Gen AI as a user interface in our company. Going forward, I guess this also will come in as the interface for customer on their, how they interact with your vehicle and so on and so forth. It will also come in, I guess, at appropriate time when this security gets a little more marketable to the market factory. But I think that's the space we're looking at, because in this space, I think our knowledge security becomes a major challenge, and the confidentiality become major challenge. So you need to put a right framework in place, which I think we have just done that in the company to adopt within the company right now.
No, I'm glad you touched on the challenges, because that's exactly
Yeah.
what I wanted to ask you, because that's sometimes, in the excitement, we forget that there are so many challenges. And one of the challenges with this would also be the generative AI, whenever you're using it especially for the engagement part of it with your customers, would have to be in different languages.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody thinks generative AI equated with English, but it's not so in
Not so in India.
India. And a car
Absolutely.
users could be
Not
from
so
any...
inside the car. Yeah, not so inside the car,
Absolutely.
especially.
Yeah, and the affordability has nothing to do with the English language. I mean, people
Absolutely.
probably in the rural areas can far more richer, than most of the guys in the urban areas. So the best of the cars are, sometimes I see those Mercs and BMW and Maruti, all the latest ones out there in the rural areas. So you have all the high-end cars out there. So that would be one of the challenges. And also the other challenge I would like you to touch upon is, I remember whenever we used to have these conversations about digital transformation, we should talk about, modernizing legacy applications. Now, look at the hundreds of APIs that you have to integrate with at this point in time, because I don't know. I would not like to be in your shoes. So you could give us some idea.
I think with all this technology coming in, I think one of the very important role which is coming in the industry is the ability to architect enterprise architecture in the company, and also on top of it, putting right governance processes in top of it, like you're saying. I think this is two areas where it is not, so-called top of the mind agenda for everybody. But my feeling is these are the two areas in the company. When you're running a large programs, it's very important to have a right, enterprise architecture space where you have right technology selection which we are going to adopt, because we are not an IT company where I to see, X number technology can work together. You have to have a right technology framework in place to do that and all. And in order to do that, I think creating that whole enterprise architecture standards, and then whenever you're doing more innovation around, we are working with so many startups with different technologies, different kind of use cases over there, but they have to fit into your whole enterprise architecture somewhere. So how do you really make sure that you have a right governance process in place, so that they all has to integrate? Factory, they can't be a separate silo sitting somewhere, So these two role of the IT governance and also the enterprise architecture, I guess, are very, very important skills and capabilities which any organization need to create to ensure that they run a successful digital transformation in the company. I think that's very important, I feel, is there for any organization.
Has it become more challenging with generative AI?
Little bit more, I'll say, but I think any new technology coming in add another dimension to the whole stuff to look at that. Now, in our case, we are generating, a lot of knowledge from the internal knowledge. You need to have hard firewall between your knowledge and an outside generative AI to really get knowledge. So how do you create those frameworks and those architecture in place? I think is a big capability requirement in the organization to work on, and the skills of that is not only the technology skill. You need business skills, you need technology skills, you need governance skills. So I think you need a real supermans to really manage this enterprise architecture space in your team, and that's, I think, is going to be a critical going forward to really sustain the whole adoption, I guess.
Let me ask you this question, and probably only you can answer this among all our guests on this podcast. For the last 8-9 years, we've been doing a lot of digital transformation projects for a lot of our clients, and the fact of the matter is, a big chunk or a significant chunk of digital transformation project at the ground when it comes to practical implementation is essentially change management. Okay, we have to, the workforce within the company across the hierarchy, from the senior management to the people who have to implement it, they have to believe in the new technologies that are being adopted and the frameworks that are being adopted. And you wear the hat of an HR head as well in Maruti Suzuki, apart from the IT person, right? So tell me this, practically speaking, how much of a change management issue is the adoption of these new age digital technologies and the digital transformation? And how do you guys, especially you manage it within Maruti?
Okay, Jayanth, I think very important part on this is change management, especially if you are a successful company and running, very profitable business for a long time. People believe what you are doing is all great, and this is the only way to grow because you have been successful in the company. So you need to break that whole cultural change to really bring, if I can't say that, but of a sense of urgency in the company, which need to be brought in to really ensure that you adopt that and all. That's point number one. And also to do this, what we started doing was, and especially now I am talking about more digital transformation, I said let's start from the board level first. And can we, or maybe a vertical head level first, that all functional head, we said, okay, let's develop some sort of a development program for you. And it was a long program for almost 16 weeks where different best of professors from the globe used to come. And then we created a program which is 2 hours every week with a lot of homework and the learning sharing around with all the people there. But it ended up with the small areas around where each one of them said, or each group of people said, this is what I feel that digital transformation can be done in my area or in the company area to work on. And we all get together and went to my CEO and said, okay, this is the team has done. This is what they want to suggest, that this change we should be bringing in. And it all was, almost all of them were approved. And I'm happy to say all of them are implemented now because it's being driven by those people who are really running the businesses themselves, actually. So that's a point number one, we could do that, Secondly, important is you create right org structure to run it. Now, the guy who's selling vehicles day in and day out, the guy who's producing vehicles day in out in the morning, and for him, running the line, running the sales is an urgent thing to do today. Any disruption, the whole innovation will take a backseat to look at that.
Right.
So we said, okay, do we create a right organization structure to run this innovation? So we created separate teams for driving this transformation, which is outside the whole framework of the running the departments, or maybe so both physically separate organization and also few people virtually, within the organization whose only job is to do transformation. They are not bothered about day-to-day running. So creating a right kind of org structure to run the transformation is also very important HR part of the thing to do that, so that your focus remains over there. Their care is not toward producing number of vehicles today or selling so many number of vehicles today. Their care is to innovation.
Right.
How many innovation pipeline they could build, how many innovation pipeline you could convert into the projects, what's the ROI of those projects. So able to define those numbers was a challenge for them, and that's where they worked on to look at that. I think creating an enabling organization to drive transformation, I think, is very, very important area with the right capability of people to do it and all. I think those are people have a very good mix of technology people than more business people over there together to work on all of them. Maybe few people, technology people learned business, and a lot of business people learned technology, and that team was given task to drive the transformation. I think we are very successful in doing that kind of organization structure building.
Cross-pollination.
Yes.
But two things are also happening when we are looking at these kind of, rapid technology changes. One is, and I'm not talking so much at the board level. I'm not talking because, as you rightly said, at the board levels, of course, there's a lot more consciousness, especially when it comes to bigger, these large companies. But smaller companies have different dynamics. But even in large companies, you have this whole population out there, people working on the shop floor, people working at the middle management levels, where they see these changes as very disruptive. Because as I always say, the goalposts keep on shifting. So like today it's one, tomorrow it's one, and of course there are so many signals coming on Twitter now called X, and even Twitter is changing to X, and 10,000 other things are happening. So the shifting goalposts that we're having over there. How is it? what is the message that you give to employees, especially those when they look at these high automation levels, when they look at, they read about potential losses of jobs due to automation. You also deal with a lot of unions, for instance. How exactly, I mean, yours is quite a challenging task out there. So part of the change management is what Jayanth and we were speaking about. How does this sort of tie in with all those strategies?
Leslie, I think one important thing happening in this space is the whole consumerization of digital. I mean, even my workman also, to watch movie, he goes to PVR, or a book my show to really book his ticket to do that and all. So digital today is not alien to, see, earlier digital used to be, you get a best of system in your offices, and home you don't have anything. Today, I think the way consumers are using digital, I don't think they are alien to this kind of technology to be used over there in the area of your work which you are doing. So my feeling is the whole ecosystem understanding on digital now is fairly good, and the I don't think anybody, your drivers or your home helps and all kinds of, everybody have the digital phone in their hand to do that. Other day my homemade was telling that I learned this new recipe in YouTube, can I make it for you? So I think that's the kind of proliferation of the technology within those people around. So the short point is, I think, is the capability to absorb these things around due to the environment available today. I think it's not very alien to look at that. They understand this in their day-to-day life. If you can create the right framework in the organization and give them opportunity to really work on that, I think they come out with brilliant ideas to look at that. In fact, what we run in the company is very interesting. We call it entrepreneurship challenge. So we tell we do similarly, our program for innovation out from the outside world for open innovation. But we said, okay, let's try with our employees. That can you be an entrepreneur? And do some good entrepreneur ideas for digital adoption. I was surprised the kind of response I got. I was surprised with the relevance to business which I got from all of them. And we did a evaluation process. We did 1, 2, 3, top 3. We rewarded them with decent cash prize to work on. But end of the day, I think their ability to think business and give out with solution to work on was phenomenal. So the point I'm making is, I think with this environment of digital around us, they just need little nudging. That's all. And with that nudging, I think the idea you get from your own people over there is phenomenal going forward and all. So change management today, if you run it properly, is less of a problem now because of that whole understanding of digital into day-to-day life.
But if I were to broaden this discussion a bit, the experiences that you are talking about is mostly restricted, and correct me if I'm wrong because you have far more experience than me, is that the discussion that we're having is more about the organized sector, which is about 10% of the workforce of India. Now, there's a whole 90% out there that really doesn't understand what's happening. And the pace, the technology treadmill is moving at an incredible pace. A lot of jobs are getting automated. A lot of jobs are not, probably, as the World Economic Forum shows it. Many of these jobs may not get automated, like the plumber, your electrician, your person pulling the handcart, those kind of things. Fortunately, will not be automated in any hurry because it may not be worth the ROI. But if you were to look at engineering students today, if you were to look at college students today who are getting into the workforce, what would be your advice to them? What should they be looking at?
I think this debate we have been having for a long time on this subject, that automation and jobs will go. It has never happened.
Absolutely.
Only thing which happens is the quality of job changes, frankly.
I'm glad to hear that actually from you.
The quality of
that's why
the quality of jobs changes with the people around and all. And I mean, I'm surprised to the pace at which people have been adopting these technologies to look at that. And also from Indian context, I think the kind of environment being created by the government on to do a digital transformation is phenomenal kind of thing. The UPI example we just talked about today, payment, even a small shop everywhere in the country, a pawn shop also, as UPI payment is a preferred mode of for him. Similarly, I think with the new platform like ONDC coming in India, with the digital and e-commerce platform working on, my feeling is the whole nature of job will change. The work will the capability required to run the change. But I think your ability to learn new skills and be relevant, I think, is the message for everybody to work on. So the gone are a day when you just have a simple engineering graduate or simple MBA graduate, unless you understand the latest nuances, whether it's a data science, whether it's a 3D printing or all those new technology area around, to be relevant for the industry. I think this is the way which anybody has to think about, than being saying, okay, now I'm graduate, so okay, let me go for a job. No, I think you need to understand and you need to be very relevant for the businesses and for the industry as we go along. Frankly.
So basically, your take home will be very, very clear. It has to be ongoing education, ongoing, which I think we have been talking about.
You have to be relevant,
Yeah.
I guess. You have to be relevant for the business.
Yeah, I
Jayanth,
mean, it's so refreshing to hear it from him, and I guess we've been talking about it, but hearing
No,
from
but
someone so senior in the industry,
Rajesh has always been saying it. Rajesh
Yeah.
has always been saying
no,
it.
net the jobs will only increase, and what I found it really encouraging to hear is he says that the people are also adopting these new technologies. I mean, this puts
Absolutely.
at least from his perspective, this puts the entire debate and the stagnant question to rest. And we are hearing that question from all corners of the world, not just here, not just India. I mean, from the developed world, from the valley, from everywhere.
Sure.
No, I'm saying I'm glad we are speaking to techno optimists out here. But of course, we also are being realists also over here. I mean, we are being pragmatists also. It's not just misplaced kind of optimism. And I think the take home for our listeners would be very clear from a veteran like Rajesh out here, is that let's not fret over the potential losses of automation. Let's just keep on working and continuously upgrading our own skills. And I think it's important to remember that education does not stop. It's going to go on and on. And on this happy note, I think we'll call it a day for today. Rajesh, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on this podcast and sharing these insights with our listeners. Thank you very much. And Jayanth, thank you again.
Thanks, you so much, Leslie. Thank you, Jayanth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Uppal. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.